Hello and welcome to our first video on the CIPer Model 30 IP controller by Honeywell. My name is Frank Whitmer with Brody Precision, and today's topic is shell mode and factory reset. The CIPer 30 serial shell mode is done via a USB cable, USB Type A cable off your PC to the Type B port on a CIPer 30 controller. It's basically the old style USB printer cable that gets used. And we'll be using PuTTY as the terminal emulator program. And the settings for this is the same as what we have with the standard JACE8000. The baud rate is 15.2, 8 data bits, 1 stop bit, no parity, and no flow control. And you work off your PC USB serial port and connect it to the controller. Once we have that done, we'll be going through how to do a factory reset. So if you upgraded it to 4.8 and you want to revert back to 4.7, or you just want to go back to a clean controller out of the box, then you would do a CIPer 30 factory reset. And this does involve using PuTTY and shell mode to be able to do this. The results of doing this reset include the license file gets removed, the default IP addressing will be restored to the controller. The station, default station, will also be restored to the controller, and the same with the platform credentials and passphrase. They will all be reset to the factory default. And the version of software that gets installed with this reset is 4.7.110.32. When we go through and do this reset, you'll see here with a couple screenshots of PuTTY. When you do a power cycle or a reboot, you'll see a countdown at the bottom from 5. While it's counting down, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be typing the letters enter, E-N-T-E-R, and then press the enter key. And then there's a prompt to make sure that you really want to do this reset process. You would say yes, and in turn it will go to the next step, and it takes a few minutes. What it's basically going to be doing is it's going to be copying the files over from the recovery partition. The new station, or the default station, IPC station, will be installed. And as I mentioned, the credentials and passphrases are reset to the factory settings. And when you're complete, you log in and move from there. Here are some screenshots that I captured of what happens during this reset of the controller. And again, as I mentioned, you will be going back to defaults, and here's a shot of what the actual default passwords and usernames are for the station, for the platform, and for the passphrase for future reference. Now we can go live, and I've opened up PuTTY, and as you can see here, it's a standard, just like HyperTerminal would be. I already have a saved session, so I'm going to go ahead and load that and show you how it's set up. If we go to serial on there, you'll see that there is a COM port that you need. In order to put in the right COM port number, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to open up your device manager and look at your ports to determine which is your COM port number for that USB port that you're using. So we go to ports and we look down here. In my setup here, I'm using COM6. So that's how I came up with COM6 as the serial port to use. Baud rate is 115,200, 8 data bits, 8 stop bits, or 1 stop bit, and no parity or flow control. And I also changed the colors so that it was easier to see when I do the screen capture for this video session. So if we turn around and we say open, PuTTY will open up, and if I hit enter, I can go ahead and log in. Now on this one, I had installed 4.8 on this CIPer 30. And when you go into Shell, this is the menu that comes up when you log in. And it's very similar to an JACE 8600 and the other legacy JACEs, where you can go in and you can enable and disable your FTP, time, your network settings, all those things can be done here. But what we want to do at this point is we're going to do a reboot. And when we reboot, as I mentioned in the earlier slide, we're going to type in enter when we get the countdown. So let's go ahead and try that. 9, yes, we want to reboot. And now we type in enter. And we hit enter, so I typed it correctly. I didn't fat finger anything wrong. Yes, restore factory defaults. And from here, we will let the system go about its restoring of factory defaults. And as you can see, you can follow through and watch what was occurring step by step with this setup. And here you can see it's creating folders, it's extracting some software out, and it's processing a JRE update zip file there, and it's going to start copying all the files back in and resetting everything for us. As I mentioned, this is a process that does take a couple minutes, so we will just let this roll and see where we get to when it finishes. And while we're waiting for this to finish, I should mention that this slide deck that I showed is going to be available as well on BP Tech Center. Okay, we just let it go through there and just keep on going. And we are getting closer. Okay, now it looks like we're done. If I hit enter, when it's done, hitting enter should bring us back to the login screen, so it's still working along. Okay, so we see here that I guess I was a little premature in hitting enter when it wasn't quite finished, but obviously it's done now and we can log in. So as we had mentioned, the login is going to be should be Honeywell Webs, and we are back to our screen here. Back to the shell mode menu, and as you can see, everything here is set up. I should have pointed out before we were at a different IP address, and it did put it back to the defaults, and it did go back to the Honeywell Webs setting there, and everything is set up now with 4.7.110 as I mentioned. And from there we could hit L to log out, and we're finished with that session, so we can go ahead and close PuTTY, and we can come back over to our workbench and take a peek at what we have in here. And if we go down to 160, and this is going to be Honeywell Webs, and you're back to as if it's new out of the box, and it should allow us to log in. It's asking us to accept. We'll go ahead and accept, And the last thing we'll do is check the application director. And well, before we do that, it comes up because it went back to defaults. It's forcing us to change platform settings. So we'll go ahead and do that. And same, I did something wrong there. Let's try this again. And move along. And then we do our platform, my username, my password. And say next, and that's finished. So now we should be able to access the platform and look at platform administration. And well, first we'll go to application director. We'll show that the original station is back in there. And you'll notice out of the box now, after a reset, the station doesn't automatically start. The auto start is unchecked. So you would go ahead and check that to get it to start. And if we go to platform administration, we will see in there that it is set for 4.7.110, and everything is ready to go from there. So with a little patience, this should go ahead and open up eventually. Okay, I'm not sure if you picked up on that, but I was still trying to go back to my original IP address. So we in turn want to turn around and go to the correct one, which is here. Go back in here and look at the platform administration. And there we go. So what we have is Baja version 4.7.110.32, and everything else is back to the original settings. And that is everything on the reset to factory defaults. And thank you for your time.